people just came in, if you don't mind grabbing a name tag, that would be great. Sign in as well. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick intro to the team, and then we'll go over what the agenda is today, and then we have a exercise for you guys to introduce yourselves to each other, and then after that we'll let people grab lunch. Okay, so today's agenda. Actually, let me do team first. Hi, I'm Sarah Ultimus Pope, Executive Director of South Willamette Solutions, and also known locally as the Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative and Oakridge Air. We have our SWFC team here today helping facilitate, and we're working in support of Oakridge Trails Alliance. This is their project, and we're helping on facilitation. So I'll just go down the road here.
Hi, I'm Glenda Joya. I'm the Community and Climate Resiliency Coordinator for the Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative. And I'm here to help facilitate. So good questions. Yes.
Everyone, I'm Jude Anderson. I wear a few different hats in the community, but today I'm here representing RAIN. I'm a local venture catalyst for an organization that works directly with small businesses and entrepreneurs in the area.
I'm Matt McFarland, co-founder, president of Oakridge Trails Alliance, and I wear many hats within the organization. But we have how many board members here today? Oh, there we go. Thank you. And we have two trail crews over there. Derek and Alex.
My name is Dustin. I'm the coordinator for the Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Appreciate it.
So back, I'm August Reed. I am the outreach coordinator for the Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative. You'll see me taking photos. If you don't want your photo included, please let me know before you leave today. I love these guys. Sign in, grab a name tag.
Great, and maybe can we do a quick Forest Service? If you want to do introduction and.
Sure. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm several. But you've been here before. My name's Gabe Wishart. I'm the district ranger here on the middle board. Super stoked to have you guys here to be hosting you for a Friday. It is insane busy, and then it caught on fire. And so we're a little bit distracted here, but fortunately we don't have a huge role to play with you guys' discussion. Sarah's got everything set up. I'm probably going to absent myself, and Cameron, if you want to introduce yourself, he's probably going to take point for Forest Service today.
Everyone, I'm Cameron Mitchell, the Deputy District Ranger here in the Oakridge District. I think we've met quite a few of you guys that do collaborative meetings or some previous meetings around recreation in back here. Glad to have you, and thanks to OCA and Sarah for putting together to kind of discuss the opportunities and kind of interests and needs of the community around our recreation trails. Thank you.
And I'm realizing that I'm going to start with this project overview because we're seeing a lot of new faces, and then we'll come back to the exercise, but maybe just starting first with this why, in case you haven't been able to read much online. So this project was a grant that Oakridge Trails Alliance, and Matt, don't jump up here if you want to with me, put in for and received from Travel Oregon. And it's really about developing a concept for a connected trail system in Eastern Oakridge. And you guys have maps on your table. You see the big one. And we're really talking about this highlighted area that includes the east side of the city of Oakridge and then the forested lands that connect. And this workshop is going to be the first in a series of workshops, eventually possibly field trips, and then roundtable discussions on really talking about this space. So I just wanted to give that frame up. Matt, maybe you want to add?
Yeah, the overarching goal is to create an assessment of, one, what do we have? What is the existing connections to town? And then identifying gaps in the opportunities that we're not capitalizing on. So are there markets that we're missing out on? Are there more people we can bring to town through different types of trails connections? So it's going to identify all of these weak spots, identify what the community wants. It's about trails, but it's also about community and economic development, how trails will grow our community pretty much.
Thanks. And with so many people here, we're not going to do the standard running around the room and doing intros. We're going to let you do them at the tables. And then as we talk today, people can share their names. But let me just give you the quick agenda here so you know where we're going. So we're going to do this introductory exercise at your tables. And then we got lunch for you guys. And then we're going to talk at you for probably about an hour, hour and a half with just some content information that's helpful as we go into this process. During that portion of it, we are going to record. We thought we might have some people coming in online. Looks like that's not the case. But we wanted to record just this great information that partners are either we have and have prepared for you guys, but also with Rain being here with Recreation Economy and OTA on the trail stuff, we wanted to capture that. So just want to give you a heads up with that. And then we're going to go into, as a group, talking about shared vision and do a shared visioning exercise. And then the most important thing is after this, there's a happy hour. So after we get done here, Oakridge Trails Alliance at their space on Pine Street and First have just a happy hour, drinks, and a chance to get together.
We're also barbecuing.
Oh, you are also, okay. Didn't want to overpromise. No, that's great. Barbecuing too. So if you aren't familiar with Uptown Oakridge, at the stoplight, if you go over the overpass at Crestview and just turn up the street, it's on Pine and First. So just wanted to throw that quick map in there. And
Actually, really quick, maybe before we do the icebreaker, since Carmen is the new Oakridge City Planner and she can't stay, but I wanted her to kind of introduce herself so that way people know her face.
yes, Oakridge just hired a new city planner, I think this week. So Carmen,
Yeah.
so put it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like hijack. I was just gonna.
No, that's
sit
great.
quiet. Hi, I'm Oakridge's new community development director and city planner. I am here. I come from the National Park Service. I used to do park planning for them for about a year or so. And yeah, my background is geology, environmental science, and this is my introduction.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thanks for being with us. And for this, if you have the time for introductions, I do see we got empty seats up here in the front. Also, some of folks are in the back. If you guys want to grab a seat at the table. And then this is the exercise we're going to have you do. So bear with us. We are going to have some interactive exercises today. But what you'll see on every table has a map of the project area. And we want you to go around the table, introducing yourself to each other and answering these questions. So I think go around, answer the first question, then come around, answer the second question. But first question is, what location, sorry, I don't know why your location at Eastern Oakridge, what location in this mapped area do you visit the most and why? And then after everyone gets a chance to talk, if we have enough time, there's another question. When a guest comes to town, where do you take them in this area and why? So yeah, a chance for you guys to talk to each other, and we have about 15 minutes for that, and then we'll feed you.
Guys all made one. Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You also want to wait. I'm gonna grab a second. Sure, we'll be in 5 minutes.
Just drop it.
So it's 5.
Mostly there is these there. You're hanging out in the hole. I don't know. I didn't be bad with sportsman like a big love. Stuff. And that's my reality. I want to
Yeah.
One day. It's about 38,000 acres up there. What's that? Like a pop dance? I'll just stop the dance. And I was involved with saving some of the watershed.
Hey, everyone, I got one more instruction for you. One more instruction. Hold on real quick. Sorry, I totally missed this. There's little sticky flags on your table, the little skinny ones. If you could flag these places that you like, that'd be great because we can actually take that data and see where there's overlapping data. I should have looked at my facilitator's guide. So yeah, please flag as you go.
There was another project.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Plan restoration. Really cool. Yeah, looks like. So. I was in this whole restoration area. Mostly with the restoration of the watersheds and the forest. And the fishing. I see you need some work. Part of
You guys know, but you guys These guys I mountain bike.
There's nothing in the area they care about. That's data too.
I did a lot right down here. It was pretty good. Not great. I've been scouting. Oh, and I do a lot of north work on the shoulder shield, so rapid. So like plaster nuts. That's jobs, but I looked at it was mountain. Yeah. Scouting.
Fishing town, because it's a great fishery. Is that, I don't recognize. Paddleboard?
Find my son.
You wouldn't get me on the paddle. We're not looking for one. I'm gonna fall over that thing. They do seem narrow, but I think it's pretty stable. Yeah, but they don't look very good. Watch those. The first piece is alive. And so it's too low. Not like the other guy. I don't know. I'm sure. I'm standing. Trying to freak me out. Spend time on his own streets. Actually, that's how it's. Turn sideways.
Yeah, it was good.
North Orange is the north side of.
You mentioned Nebraska. Did you work there? Dustin, he's from Nebraska. Cool.
The concept is there was a river. And up above, it's the tide trail, which is really fun. Yeah, I like it.
Second question. When a guest comes to town, where do you take them in the eastern Oakridge area? I suggest you do. You got 7 more minutes. And then let me know if you're getting beyond it. We can save time, but sounds like people are having good discussion. So yeah, question number 2. Trying to get there. We gave you for oh, yes. Yes. Or we're just a second flag where you like to take guests. I just.
Doug Brown. Help me find this way. Mosquitoes and guns are off. I'm thinking. Really good job. Yeah. What do you think? I think we got it. Uptown is an important place to visit, I think.
You never walk around.
My friends are. I take them to the club for one thing. I'm from downtown, I think. Friends are visiting, so. It's a sweet little area. Take them out of town, I take them up on the.
People would be offended if we did a quick review. So we just have to.
Yeah. 5 minutes.
Taking the flags. I just went through.
Yeah, okay, we'll save a little time, 1 more minute, and then we're gonna do it, it's a round of intros. We think we can.
That's a neat little place. That had a bear there. That's the old office. Well, it's only talking to your office. Here, must be lodging. It was our hotel lodge. And it's a little place to grab a beer and sandwiches. Pretty cool. What I like about it is awesome. This is a nice street place.
All right,
I was gonna talk.
so you guys were so efficient with time. We're gonna do the really annoying introductory thing, but it's kind of helpful. We're gonna go around the room, and if people can just really briefly, a quick intro, name, intro, organization if you have one. And if you want to share where you live, that's also, if you're not with an organization, that's helpful context. But yeah, it seems like everyone did get through the 2 questions, so that we'll take the time to do that, and then we'll let you break for lunch. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Y'all want to know who's here? Okay. I'll just do the point out thing as we go through tables. So yeah, Eugene, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Eugene Cathcart. I am representing or involved with the kids mountain bike team, NICA, National Interscholastic Cycling Association. We're always looking for ways to get youth from uptown Oakridge to the trail. So I'm super excited about this. I'm also a board member of the Uptown Business and Revitalization Association and the Oakridge Trail Line.
I'm Jacob, volunteer with the Pacific Crest Trail Association, OTA, and I live in Westburg, and happy to get on trails and influence how they're built.
Hey, how's it going? Dan Sweeney, just recently moved into Oakridge here, and we're on the east side of town, so this whole east side of town, it's sort of important to us. During this, yeah, recreating is like right out our back doors on the Ways deck is awesome, and we're mountain bikers and hikers, and that's why we're here to do all these fun things that Oakridge has offered.
I'm Kim, I'm his wife, so I'll just say whatever he said.
Thanks for being here, Kim. And Cameron, we got you introduced earlier, right? Okay, we'll go back to Lori.
Lori Patty, I am. Jason Overmeyer, and I'm on the board of the collaborative. Yes, I'm also on the Lane Electric Board, I'm on the museum board. On, I'm part of the state forestry committee. I'm pretty involved and I live in Oakridge, my life.
Mackenzie Jensen, I work here on Middle Fork Ranger District as the recreation staff. I also live here in the community and use these trails a lot, so I'm actually here.
I'm Alan. I'm was a former Coast member and still do some trail work, but I'm also the mountain biking librarian of Oakridge. I'm Kelly, and I'm just a resident of the city that get involved with it.
Well, and Kelly, you're also on the Oakridge Economic Development Advisory Committee too.
I'm on the tourism TRTR.
There you go, see? You've been outed. Linda.
Linda Kammerer, I'm a board member with Eugene on the Uptown Business Association, and I love walking and hiking, so happy to be here.
And Chippendale, they've all been said we're in Rapids. I'm Natalie, I'm kind of new here from Dan, but I like mountain biking and hiking, and just thought I'd come and see what I can do to help out.
Michelle Evans, OTA board member and co-founder with the organization, also served 2 terms on Greater Oakridge Area Trail Stewards, been in the Oakridge area for about 13 years, advocating for recreational access and expanded opportunities to recreate our area. Yeah, I'll just pass it on to my friend Sean.
I'm Sean. I work for Cog Wild, and I own Holt Adventure Company. And I use trails a lot. I have a lot of ideas that I want to get out in the world, so I figured here I am. And I live in Uptown.
My name's Dennis Sibilia Young. I'm team director for Eugene Composite, which now has 42 student athletes and 20 licensed coaches. And similar to what Eugene does, it's a NICA program for 6th through 12th graders. I also do instruction through Cog Wild. And then I'm also doing week-long camps for adults and children through Corvallis Parks and Rec and Willamette Lane. And it's been a really fun, busy season.
Everybody, my name is Tom Lyons. I'm on the Parks and Community Services Board, and I'm project manager on the bike park we're building at Diamond View Park right now. All I do, yes.
Hey, my name's Jack Hill. I'm the Eugene local. I'm helping out Tom on the Diamond View rebuild right now. I'm the owner of Emerald Gravity, which is a really small trail building company. Yeah, just stoked to see what's going on.
I'm Mike Brinkley. I live in Eugene. I'm connected to Oakridge through the collaborative. My interest is in the trails in this area. I spend quite a bit of time there. Also, I'm a member of Mackenzie Fly Fishers, and I'm interested in the fishing access and the restoration that's going on up here in that area.
Hi, everybody. Keith Robinson, Oakridge resident, business owner, avid mountain biker, and definitely interested in being involved in the process of getting new trails in Oakridge.
Bob Beckowski, 5-year Oakridge resident, and enjoy the outdoors 1 week from the trail. Good afternoon. I'm Royal Suarez. I'm the Recreation Heritage Lands, Minerals and Partnership Staff Officer on the Willamette National Forest Supervisor's Office. I live in Eugene, and those are good questions because I love to recreate, I love to get out, but I don't spend a lot of time in Oakridge. I like recreating, east of here, up at Waldo Lake and down to Odell Lake and those areas, but maybe stop by on occasion to get to
the pubs, stuff like that, but every time I drive through, I think like, there's so much potential here. And, having, I'll mountain bike, but I'm not like a black diamond by any means. So yes, at this point, yeah, I see opportunities, but nothing that really pulls me like hang out here, make it like a weekend. Anyway, but excited to hear what ideas come up, and we did invest a little bit of time in the trails piece. So the district has done a lot of planning, but then we also got with the county and had an agreement with Oregon, the University of Oregon, and COVID hit, and they kind of derailed them.
And we'll get to talk about that later. We actually have it here. So yeah, great. Thanks, Mara.
I'm Lynn Williams. I'm retired forester. I've lived here not quite forever, but almost. I did my time in the woods. I don't do a whole lot of hiking and biking. I just had my hip replaced, so maybe soon I'll be able to. But thank you for your interest in this community because it's really special.
Jamie Yannick, I'm an Oakridge resident. I am really passionate about just being outside. I love it here, and I'm passionate about making it more accessible to more people. So thanks for putting this on because this is awesome and very
I'm Derek Bell. I've been involved pretty knee deep in the mountain biking in Oakridge and the trails since about 1996. Volunteer trail work coordinator for the Greater Oakridge Area Trail Stewards. X-Men trail crew. Now I'm currently the trail crew leader for the OTA, Oakridge Trails Alliance. I've tried to leave Oakridge a couple times, so I keep on coming back. I think this time around it's going to stick. It's a great area. There's a ton to do. And these two questions, I have taken guests on every trail on the map. And a lot of times I've taken guests on the trail that's being worked on the map. And that's brought people here, they come back over and over again. This Eastern Oakridge project, I think it's a great project. There's a lot of ways we can connect uptown to the National Forest Trails, and to me, there's a lot of stuff out there. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's just a matter of getting it done. So I'm glad that these steps are being taken to move forward on it. And it looks like there's a good amount of people that want to get involved in it. So excited to see that.
David Chamberlain, I am board of all SWFC. I've been enjoying Oakridge Trails for over 30 years. And then also I'm like a coach, the kids now play team coach, along with Eugene and Sue and Jacob and Tom. And if we add in Dennis, that makes kids mountain bike coaches in the room at least, and I might be missing one of you.
Jason McCaffrey. My wife and I got hooked on this place like 8 years ago and can't stand to not come back all the time. So much so we got a house in Westford like 3 years ago. So we try to be here a lot and just looking forward to listening, learning, and hopefully helping.
My name is Alexandria Boyd. I am a part of the trail crew, Oakridge Trails Alliance, and I'm the volunteer coordinator. And I'm a big fan of Oakridge as a whole and a very avid recreator. So excited to see what turns out of this. So.
And I'm Sue Cathcart. I'm also on the SWS board and coach for NICA. I've been involved with the effort to convert our trestle bridge to pedestrian passage. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm happy to be here.
Maybe we'll go back to Matt. I think we missed you.
Good afternoon. Yes, afternoon. Matt Peterson, I'm the Recreation Program Manager for the Willamette National Forest, so I work in the Springfield office.
Okay, sweet. So we have just such a wealth of experience in the room and connections to different pieces of all the opportunities in Eastern Oakridge. So thank you for being here. So I think at this point, we're going to take a break for 10 minutes and allow people to grab sandwiches. So we have 3 types of sandwiches. If you're not a vegetarian, maybe make sure other people who are grab one before you come back around. I think we should have plenty. And chips and cookies, drinks, in the cooler, we have several different, we have from pop to Gatorade to just LaCroix type drinks and coffee and whatnot. And then, like I mentioned, bathrooms behind us, and we'll get back together in 10 minutes. And then we're gonna probably spend about an hour presenting to you about different things we want you to know about before we start talking. So thank you.
Yes. Everybody, I forgot to mention, there are restrooms, if you go out this door and hang a left, it's right around the corner, okay?
I called you. So here we go.
Yeah. Talk about in a bit. But there's examples there. A sandwich program. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Like playing my I will tell you a story. We find, I always just get a page. I ride my mountain bike. Mountain bike. I said, I'm going to mountain bike. The next thing we got him on and I said, I told you I was going to be cycling like ready to vote. What's that? But Oregon, yeah, it's like Oakridge, mountain biker. And then to make it easy, it doesn't go there. Like, if I get worse though. Mountain biker. It fits. I still have a job.
Yeah. Hi, and
Yeah, I mean, you can,
Yeah.
The average. You don't. There to show that we don't.
Yeah, well, it's probably a kind of tumbles down the hill. Like here, you're gonna do some kind of. We're able to do that, but. My body will yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, yeah. Trying to find. And the five. Yeah. Then I got off the bike, I fall over and pick it up. I find something I like. Right, because I hold on to the tree, come on, get to it. It's already.
I biked around the Water Lake, but a number of years ago. I had a borrowed bike. Almost had, I didn't have any shop.
Yeah, I want to ride.
And it was probably 6 months after that, I had trouble with my.
I can think about the application right now that I and it won't be the bike that must see about it. No.
I've already told my kid. I want to trust me. I said, you find out I died, running up the year, I was like, I went away, I want to.
Non-turner.
Yeah. So my dad, he loved to farm. I died in my farm. In the back of the truckload of storms with names.
Wow.
Oh, I think he probably had what I had. And if he did, you're gone. And my brother had 2 cars. I kind of. I mean, there's bad things in it. I'm thinking about that. Well, this is how I am. Yeah. I got to get off to that, but it's good.
Starting on the next part, y'all. So there is still quite a few sandwiches left, so feel free to grab more food. And make yourself comfortable as we go through. We're going to have presentations by the whole team here on different topics. So feel free to ask questions as we go. And then if you need to jump up and grab the restroom or take a call, that's totally fine. And grab more food and drinks. Yeah, help yourself. So we jumped ahead and we did the quick project overview. But while we got the map up, one of the things I want to tell you is this beautiful map was made by Matt. He's incredibly talented, and you'll get to see more of it later. But the boundary lines right now, we're just I'll tell you what I think is important about the boundary lines, and then where maybe we can do some tweaks. So when we talked about this project and where to think of where's Eastern Oakridge, if you split the town, not technically, but kind of a natural dividing line in town is the overpass. And thinking about accessing Uptown Oakridge, a good place to think of if you want to access by without motorization. And we decided that the elementary school was a good pinpoint to think of in Eastern Oakridge. I think just naturally people are going to talk about Uptown as well. And then there's also Green Waters Park and whatever else. But that's why the boundary line, you see it going there. And then it goes north up over Laurel Butte. We all have dreams about trails on Laurel Butte. There historically was a trail on Laurel Butte that went over to West Spur. Right now it's private land though, right? So that's why we didn't go much further. We're dealing with private lands. And then on the east side, we just tried to grab some of the main trail systems, including Kitson Ridge. Somebody has already pointed out to me today that we didn't go quite far enough to capture this Kitson Hot Springs, which the community of Oakridge is currently trying to purchase from the Boy Scouts, so maybe that needs to be talked about. And then we came down and made sure we captured Larison Rock Trail. So that's why you see this here, but it is, we're just starting this process. So please know that this is up for discussion, and this is, this whole process is what you guys make of it. So wanted to point that out. And also just highlight, it's the hard work of OTA and putting in a really grant application that got us here today. And then I think we'll talk about the deliverables here as we go through. So I'm going to talk to you about community engagement. So Self-Limit Solutions was brought on to help facilitate this process, which we do a lot of facilitation through our Forest Collaborative. And we always use this process of learning sessions, field trips, so everyone can have the same, mental slides of what we're talking about, and then roundtable discussions to make decisions. So right now we are in a trail survey and vision development phase. So there is a survey out right now. And did we put the link on the agendas? I think we wanted to. If we didn't, sorry about that. But it is available online. We have some hard copies here. I think at this point, August, how many people have already answered the survey?
105.
105, and it's been out a couple weeks. So that survey is going to be open another 4 weeks. And then we'll be able to use that data, or you'll be able to use that data going into future roundtable discussions. I think the other thing to, minutes real quick, so I don't miss here, is, so this community engagement, we really want this to be a comprehensive outreach with outreaching to the local community, of course, because this, Oakridge is on the map, but then also that broader community of stakeholders that, recreate in this area and care about recreation and recreation development in this area, and also our business interests, our recreation related businesses. So we'll talk a little bit about that more today. So we really are going to be in this data gathering and shared learning process for the next couple of months. And then we'll go into field tours to look at specific sites that are going to come up in brainstorming on the types of things people might want, and then go into roundtable discussions. So probably, I don't want to set anything in stone. We'll just see how things develop, but we probably will have another learning session in early September to review the survey data and start a brainstorming process of projects people would like to see. And then another learning session or maybe brainstorming first, early September, late September, early October, reviewing survey results and brainstorming results and starting the evaluation process, and then into field trips, and probably late October getting into roundtable discussions, which could look like one meeting or it could look like a series of meetings. So it's really as the group decides what they want to do on it. So it is a longer process, but that gives us time to make sure we get a lot of voices in the process and have a good product. So we'll talk now about project description. So the goal as written in the proposal that we will, this is kind of our guidepost, is developing a conceptual design for the Eastern Oakridge Connected Trails Plan. And the purpose to address the urgent need to reinvest and expand Oakridge trail infrastructure to better serve a diverse range of outdoor recreation enthusiasts. And the methodology is extensive community engagement that'll evaluate this area and create trails to town connections and reduce reliance on cars. And key focus, one of those things that the fund wanted to fund is the design to incorporate inclusive elements for all users with a focus on families, beginners, adaptive users, and alignment with Travel Oregon's recommendations. I'm looking for Matt. Matt, please, anything else you want to add here? Well, how about
survey link up there?
Oh, perfect. Good.
I think that's going to go find a QR code, but I think we got it covered.
Yeah, you got a month to get the survey in, so, we have it on our reminders and it's gone out our newsletters and whatnot, but just wanted to point that out. And we will have hard copies at some of these key trailheads for a month or two to kind of collect data, especially from people that might not be tied into the online community here in the area.
Please share that survey link with all of your social media user groups and friends, family. Yeah, the more data we get, the better the outcome is going to be on the back end.
Jacob.
Could you share like the design steps after the design? Yeah, like how does this incorporate the Forest Service budget and plan, or maybe OTAs?
Yeah.
Process, or like what's next?
Yeah, and I'm looking, maybe we accidentally deleted that slide. I thought we actually had a deliverable slide on there, but maybe we get to it later. So project deliverables are this, developing this design or what people want on the landscape. And the grant actually has funding in it to hire a professional trail designer to design it. And I thought about sharing this map, but I didn't want to anchor people on it. But the McKenzie community and area did something similar, and they came up with a map that actually includes 70 miles of trails. So, don't necessarily think you have to think really small. As we get into this process, let's think big, and then we'll see how far the money takes us, right? So, so there'll be that professional design aspect, and then there is funding in there after that piece is done to do some NEPA analysis on Forest Service portions of this. And that's one of those things, depending on what ends up on the map, who knows how far those NEPA dollars will go, but it's enough to get a NEPA process started and provide some capacity there. So, so the end product is that design, and it will all end up, Matt, do you want to talk about the story map and those deliverables?
So basically, we're going to have C2 Recreation, Chris Bernhardt, he's going to design a connected trail system plan for East Oakridge, how these different networks to come into Oakridge, how do we use the landscape as it comes out of this. And that's all going to go into this plan that OTA can use to drive interest into this project. And hopefully that interest is going to drive money into the community and organization to build this. And then hopefully when we build this, it's going to bring people here. But the big thing that we need to do is we start with community first, not trail first. So by incorporating this trails to town concept that Sarah's going to talk about in a little bit, it's worked all over the nation. And it's built around community and how trails interface with communities. And so that's probably the main goal is here. We're going to get a deliverable that we can use to base a lot of our growth coming out of this on. Hopefully we get, a little bit of trail on the ground with the NEPA, but we don't know how far that's going to go or where that's going to be yet. But this is all what's going to come out of this first step of the process.
Yeah. And realizing if you aren't being able to see back here on this side, you guys feel free to pull your chairs out or whatever else. So yeah, here's kind of the timeline. This isn't a perfect, this is kind of the idea what timeline will look like. So right now we're in community engagement, data gathering, and that's going to happen through the fall. Next spring, well, probably starting in the winter, but through spring, trail design and development, all along the time. So this says August, but throughout the next year or so, stakeholder education and training. And do you want to talk a little bit about like adaptive
So
this.
with the stakeholder education and training, we also have money set aside in the budget to work with, Jeremy McGee. You might have seen some of his videos on Dead Mountain when he's in adaptive wheelchair. He rode, I think they did Dead Mountain, they did Alpine. I think they tried Larison Rock, just to see what an adaptive mountain biking can do. And they identified all of these spots that we need to have fixed in our system to make it acceptable. So we brought him on as a consultant for this project so that we can get adaptive trails built here, which will enhance another user set. And out of that, we're also bringing in Matt Ruddy from Oregon Trails Coalition, I think Trail Keepers or Trail Coalition. And he also is a DEI expert. So he's going to work with DEI, and we're going to have Jeremy McGee, and they're going to work with not only the guides and outfitters, but all the businesses in the communities on how do we work with these populations? What special needs do they have that we're not meeting, and how can we can make them feel warm and welcome in our community, and what assets and enhancements from our businesses are missing?
Awesome. And then by November of next year, the EA and project finalizations, which includes the story map that Matt will show us here in a bit, final designs up on that story map. So yeah, that's kind of the big overview of the project over the next year or so. Is there any questions on that? Clear as mud. Okay, perfect. Sorry. I know it's a lot, but it's pretty exciting. But it is a process. Yeah, please do.
So I heard about, how does that interact with the Forest Service down the road? So we're in a strange time right now, and there's a lot of changes happening really rapidly. So my ability to forecast where we're going to be as an agency years down the road from now, very unclear, let alone what's happening tomorrow. And we're in a position where literally anything can change anything. The reason why I'm just bringing that up, one thing I see as a trend through time is that it's unlikely that our capacity as an agency to do a lot of this work is going to increase. I think it's just highly unlikely. What I think is a successful model for this next phase of time are communities coming together. And even if we can't come up with unity and vision as a community, at least reaching some agreements on what the community wants to see and finding ways to get investment from grants or from the community to do the policy work that's needed, that meets all of the, we have forest plans, Northwest Forest Plan, we have policy requirements. If it can meet those requirements, NEPA has to be done, but it doesn't have to be the agency that does that NEPA. There's actually ways that we can work through this if there's investment and a community that has agreement on what it wants to see. And it aligns with our plans and policies. So I think that's where the intersection really is. It's if you have a strong agreement amongst the community in that interest and that investment to make something happen, I think something can happen. But it's not something that we're going to be able to generate from the agency standpoint. And the other thing I can tell you, just in general terms, is it's pretty clear that building trails and being on that side of our program, which is very important, isn't currently a high priority for the administration. It's not that it doesn't matter, it's just not what's being really focused on right now, what we as an agency are being focused on. So I think that what that brings forward to me is just increases the importance that as a community, Oakridge and the folks that come to Oakridge and utilize the trails here, have these discussions, work on that vision, work on a plan with us that we can help facilitate working. So I guess that's very squishy, but in general terms, that's where I see kind of the intersection of needs.
Thanks, Cameron. That's an awesome segue to what we're going to talk about next about trail towns. Oh, questions. Go ahead.
I got a question for Cameron. So in the past, the Forest Service has had a no net gain policy on trails. Like there's, I don't know, 370 miles of trail that we can ride bikes on, and like another 150 for wilderness and whatnot. And when we built like Dead Mountain Trail, the top 2 miles of that, and Waller Trail, I believe Kitson Ridge Trail was kind of just pushed off the map. So we could build those
4 miles of trail somewhere else. So whenever we've had to build a new trail section, another trail somewhere else just got forgotten about to make sure that those numbers stay the same. So my curiosity with this project, and being that it's a mix of some city trails, but also Forest Service land, is there a no net gain policy, and is that no net gain policy adjustable?
I don't know about a no net gain policy, but what I would say is we have a finite capacity for trail maintenance. And it's getting smaller as we go through time. I'm talking about over decades, right?
Yeah.
What I'd be interested in to kind of to work with that and with the community is, well, what does the community want to see around trail maintenance? Right now, we rely a lot on volunteers to do a lot of trail maintenance. I'm getting the picture that a lot of you folks are some of those volunteers. And I think that's going to be something we see continue in the future. So when we have trail maintenance plans, our ability to add mileage to that, that's going to continue to be finite. I'm looking at Matt and Mara, does that sound about right to you guys?
Yeah, there's no official policy. I mean, I've never seen it written down. And I think, any trail development, one of the key questions is how we're going to maintain it. So I think that as long as we're being thoughtful and putting consideration into that as, not just only getting excited about the new trail, but how we're going to keep those new trails over the years. As long as we have good answers for that question, I think that's the kind of stuff that we want to look at. Because there's lots of ways of getting trail maintenance done. This community is a perfect example of that. But we can't forget about that part of the question.
And so, these trails have, especially in this area, we're highlighting the importance to the economy, local economy. So that's something the community want to consider is it worth it to the community to also commit to maintaining that trail system? So I think you're going to see an agency that relies a lot on the communities that are around national forests to meet the interests of those communities, just as a general principle.
Super helpful frame up and very good question, Derek. So I'm glad that brought that in the room. Any other questions? Okay, yeah. So let's talk about trail towns. As this, once OTA was notified that they got this award and then started to pull together the plan to start this project. And Matt came and asked if we would help with the facilitation and what that would look like. He handed us this book, this Deciding on Trails book. And it's pretty new, written in 2020, but it's about the Trail Town Initiative in the eastern part of the country and how communities that were on trails came together on thinking about how as a community they're built around trails. So there's a Trail Town program that is focused within a certain subset of states, but there's no official Trail Town like membership type thing. It's more of a movement. And we thought it'd be helpful as we go into this process. And we have 3 copies of this book. And so we definitely can check them out to folks if they want to read them. It's a really fast read. But it provides a nice overarching framework of thinking around trail towns.
Just want to say something about that book. Oakridge is mentioned in that book.
It is.
So
yeah.
There's a little tidbit for you guys to read it.
Yeah. And so a trail town is a framework for communities to leverage trails as powerful assets for economic vitality, resident well-being, and a vibrant local culture. It's a journey, not a checklist. And journey to becoming a trail town is a continuous process. And it starts with a strong foundation of community vision, builds through quality infrastructure and welcoming atmosphere, and matures into deeply integrated. And I want to point out here, and we have, in a little bit, a town doesn't have to be built around one trail. And it doesn't have to be built around dirt trails. There can be waterway trails. There can be rails to trails. It's what does trails mean to that community and what's the culture that you build around it? So I'm going to really quickly take you through the steps that this book recommends. And I think I wanted to share them because it provides a nice kind of framework for us to think about. So first, trails are all inclusive for all types of users and include a whole variety of trails. And these steps, not necessarily in exact order, but as the book talks about them, is adopting a shared vision. So this is a community-led decision-making and visioning. to adopt that shared vision and focusing on local residents first. And we're going to talk about all the plans that Oakridge has done over the last 20 years. And we have been planned to death, but we have failed to implement a lot of these plans, right? And I think something with a lot of these plans, because I've been here for a lot of these processes, is they were not community led. They were money going to a consulting firm that came in and helped us deliver a project or product. And there's good things captured in these plans, really great nuggets that are captured, but how do we really turn that into this community-led vision that everyone has, buy-in and sees themselves in it and helping to execute this plan? And then physically connecting trails to town. So in the book, it talks about these trail towns through Appalachia and other areas in the country, is that they have these amazing trails going by their communities, but not connecting. And I think that resonated with me, growing up in the Oakridge area, that, we have a lot of trails and how they connect to our community really can vary. And how about those connections is kind of more, like a word of mouth thing, right? So how do we make those connections stronger and more accessible to everybody? And then the next process is, so committing to quality trails. And so, some of what you were saying, Cameron, like to be realistic, we're looking at Forest Service lands, there's a capacity issue there, right? And so how do we as a community commit to those quality trails and maintain them as quality trails? And have strategic planning around the infrastructure development, right? It's one thing to make a great map and say, we're going to go build it, but let's be strategic about what we're going to build. And then extending the invitation. So that's the marketing, hospitality, experience creation, and extending that invitation to people outside of the community. And that's knowing your market and sharing your story and cultivating that culture around that trail town. And, Oakridge is there in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, it's still being held up as an example. So I think we have so many of these pieces. I think we can tighten it up, though. And so this book provides a lot of great examples. And I think it was just really helpful how it brought it together. And so one of the things that the book provides is this, who all you should involve in this process. And then the plans that we have didn't necessarily, they weren't great about making sure we had this cross section. And I'm sure this list is not fully inclusive, but having local residents and local businesses with our government officials and our visitors and developing these plans and this culture. Okay, I think that's it on trail towns. So before we move on to talk about our maps, are there any questions on that? Okay, well, so your homework, no, just kidding. But if you want to read it, we'll loan you a book. So, okay, now I think we will look at the map and look at what is on the landscape right now for our trails. So this is you guys. It's just an accident waiting to happen. Okay. It is very open.
All right. So what we're just going to go through really quick here is looking at all of these trail connections that are in the east side of Oakridge and how they relate to town by distance. We're going to radiate outwards from the closest to the furthest trailheads, just to kind of give an overview of what it takes a person, whether your mode is travel is by foot or a bicycle, because some of the stuff we're talking about would be nice to have. What was the term you used?
Park once.
Park once. So you park once and you go out and you recreate and you come back. This is just one type of recreational opportunity. We already have a shuttle service. So there's other opportunities around that part of that recreation as well. We're really, really good at what we do there. It's this other component that we need to love. So we're just going to look at these and how they are related to town. So we use the Oakridge Elementary School as a base for calculating travel times and distance. So the closest proximity is the Santa Creek Park and the North Levee access. We're about, a 9/10 of a mile from town, 21 minutes and a 5-minute bike ride to access that North Levee Trail, which you haven't been on it, it's basically kind of a gravel road that takes you pretty much from Fish Hatchery Road all the way to Highway 58. And then,
And
We're really
actually,
far.
as we're getting to here, the picture, so you guys, this is all available online, so
Yeah.
after this meeting, you'll go online and see it. And the pictures are the actual trailheads,
you can click.
at these areas.
So this just shows you the entrance to that trail that takes you over to the levee. You go to the next one, it just gives you a wider scope for you.
Yeah.
Should be an arrow right here.
That's what it is. I can't.
I was hiding it. Yeah, so this is just looking at the parking area. It's one of the few really developed trailheads that get us out to other than like rainwaters that we have. So we can just,
Except for signage, that has.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So that, I don't want to get into details that are missing, but that is all part of what these plans are going to entail is like, we have all these great trails, but if you're not a local and you don't have access to a map, how do you find them? Right? So we need to work on those things, and there's some grants coming up that I have some ideas for. Moving on is the Rigdon Bike Path, which runs the Salmon Creek Trail. A lot of people still refer to it as part of Salmon Creek. It is part of Salmon Creek Trail, but it's the Rigdon Bike Path, and it's a mile-long connector that takes you over to the other side of the Flat Creek Work Center. To the trailhead from town is like 28 minutes by foot, 7 minutes on bike, and the overall length is a little under a mile. It's basically a river trail. Most of us have been on it. It's got some maintenance issues that we know we need to work on, but it's still an amazing trail, and it is a very valuable connector for the community to get to the Salmon Creek Trail and down towards the campground and recreate out the Salmon Creek Way. So then we have the South Salmon Trail, which unfortunately the bridge that washed out several years ago, the bridge to nowhere now. But this is a really good trail. It's a black diamond trail. It's a very technical, challenging trail. I bought a new bike. Michelle bought me a bike for my birthday. We decided to go ride it one time. Let's just do the whole loop. Oh, I thought I was gonna die. Yeah, I think I was walking way back here. So it's about 1.2 miles to the trailhead, 28 minutes, 7-minute bike ride, but the total trail distance is about 4 miles. It does make a really nice advanced loop by doing the North Salmon Creek, coming back on the South Salmon Creek. It's not for beginners. Found that out. Then you have the South Salmon Levee Trail, which I think you can still access it from up here at the fish hatchery. It's kind of overgrown, but most people would park down here at the disc golf courses. So you can see the old mill golf course sign right there and parking. Right across the street from the fish hatchery. It takes you onto the levee, which again is just another like gravel type road. And it takes you all the way to Green Waters Park. So this is another key access trail that allows people to get from town to Green Waters without having to get on Highway 58. If we get the trestle bridge here completed, it's going to become a really valuable link. I know Sue's actively working on that. Thank you. So again, it's fairly close to town, mile and a half. And then across the road, we have the Fish Hatchery Trail, which is a short little half a mile or so interpretive trail. But if you look at the bigger picture from the road all the way around to the South Salmon Loop, it's about a mile and a half. So you can see that it needs love, right? There's just a lot that we can work on to enhance these visitor enhancements. And I think this is where OTA is going to play a key role in this community in helping with the Forest Service resolve a lot of these issues. So again, it's pretty close to town, 1.6 miles, 35 minutes walking, 8-minute bike ride. So half a mile hike. North Salmon Creek. So this is down by the Flat Creek Work Center, the Warrior Fitness Trail. This is the other end of the Rigdon Bike Path where it comes back out to the road. And this is the traditional, what we call the Salmon Creek Trail Network, which combines the Rigdon with Salmon Creek for about a 3.5 to 4 mile all the way to the campground. It's just a great trail for beginners. It's one of the few really good trails that we have to get beginners out on bikes. The community loves it because it's close to town. It's gentle walking. It's very scenic. When it's a hot day, you go down there and it's like 15 degrees cooler next to the river. It's just beautiful, and it's a real asset to this community. So the trailhead is about what, 1.9 miles, 40-minute walk from town, 10-minute bike ride, 2.6 miles for that section, and you add the other mile-long section of the Rigdon, the whole trail becomes roughly 3.5 miles. And then we have the city trails. So these are the pond trails around the industrial park. They get overgrown. We've just recently, our trail crew has been out there, put a lot of hours in those trails, opening them back up. They're really flat. They're great for people with mobility issues. We're going to try to get some funding to gravel them all. And then we have the canal trail, which we finished. We still need to get a bridge in here, and we built a new connector, which connects right into the pond trails. There is a plan with the CD to connect the OIP over to the disc golf course and then onto the South Levee Trail, which then if the train trestle gets done, that puts you right back into town. So this all becomes a connector that would connect over to the Eugene to Crest Trail, which is Aubrey Mountain and Heckletooth. So that would be a really good connection for the ETC. It gets people off Dunning Road and keeps them on trail.
Aubrey, Heckletooth.
So as we know, Aubrey and Heckletooth put us on Dunning Road, then you have to ride Dunning Road all the way down into town. So a little bit further out there to get to the trailhead, but it's still, within an hour's walk. But unfortunately, you're walking along Fish Hatchery Road. And then we have Dead Mountain Trail, which is an intermediate trail. The bottom half of the trail, I think from right up in here where we cross that road, it becomes a classic hiking trail that Oakridge is known for. The upper half is all purpose built for bikes. It's what we call flow trail. Big berms, rollers. It's like riding your bike on a roller coaster. So that and the bottom of Lawler are the only two trails that we have in our system that are like that. And this is the direction that the mountain biking community is growing. The trend is growing in that way, looking for those types of experiences. And then, so this trailhead is within close to town. So a lot of people will get shuttled to the top, ride all the way down the trail. They'll hit the bottom down here at Salmon Creek. You're going to scroll the map up, and then they would get on Salmon Creek Trail, and they'd take that all the way to Fish Hatchery and then ride into town. So that's how a lot of mountain bikes are using it. I believe trail runners. Are there any trail runners in here? That's how a lot of trail runners, I believe, are using the system. So, yeah, without the shuttles. But that could be a new thing.
Just only downhill.
Yeah, run the downhill. But runners like the uphill stuff.
Right.
Right. So then we have Green Waters, which is unfortunately Green Waters is on the other side of 58, so it makes access a little bit harder. This is where the levees trails are going to play into this, is having people come from town, so into the Green Waters Park and then across. So it just reflects more and more how important getting that trestle connection is going to be down the road. Because even if you take the North Levee Trail, you still got to cross the bridge at 58. So all these distances that I calculated are using safe routes. So staying off busy roads, off the highway to get to these locations. So from uptown, the elementary school, it's 2.5 miles to the Green Waters Park trailhead, 57-minute walk, 15 minutes by bike. And that is going up the Fish Hatchery Road and then coming down the South Levee Trail under 58 through the parking lot to get to Green Waters. And Green Waters is a really good beginner trail system. Again, it's really good for people with mobility issues. It's wide, it's flat. It's just a great place to take anybody out that wants to get out and experience nature. It's even a lot easier than Salmon Creek. So again, 2.5 mile distance from town, hour walk, 15-minute bike ride for a little over a mile of trails in there. And I think there's been some other trails that are added that are not as adaptive friendly, but they do provide access for mountain bikers coming back in from there, from Larison Rock. And we have Larison Rock is one of our staple trails here. If you look at how people visiting Oakridge from the mountain bike world, Dead Mountain and looking at the East Oakridge, Dead Mountain and Larison Rock are our two big trails in this part of the network. And if you look on Trail Forks, they're in the top 5 trails that people use here when they visit for a mountain bike vacation. So Larison Rock, 3 miles from town to the Green Waters, basically. And then, you have an hour walking time or a short bike ride, 18 minutes for a trail that is 3.2 miles. You can pedal up. It's shuttled a lot. Just nothing to note, though, that Larison Rock doesn't have a trailhead per se. And a lot of people use Green Waters as a trailhead, but Green Waters is not the official trailhead. And I believe that the city doesn't want it to become a popular trailhead for that system because it's dedicated to the park and rest area. So, and then we have Aubrey and Heckletooth up on Dunning Road. So 3.5 miles from town, hour and 20-minute walk. You have a 7-mile trail for Heckletooth and 2-mile trail for Aubrey Mountain. So again, the mountain biker in me tells you that the distances, if you shuttled it and you wrote it down, that's what the distances would be. So it's just the length. If you walk that trail and walk the top and back, it's going to be a lot longer. So, yeah. And
Going through private land right now.
Mm-hmm.
what's the,
Aubrey, travels through private land.
Oh,
now
yes.
to get to that trail.
Yep.
Yep, this lower half is private property in here. Yeah, you can see the property bound, the Forest Service property boundary right here. So that's private. And then Kitson Ridge, apparently Derek Trail's still out there. This has a lot of potential for future development as a connection to town. The trail exists. I think gravel grinders like to climb up there. I haven't personally been on it, but there are some images. It looks fairly overgrown. It's like one of those lost trails, but Sarah says she uses it. So good lookouts, I'm sure.
Caves. Cool.
Whoa.
And that's all.
And that's it. And we got questions on what
Tours.
we talked about. I'm blocking your view the whole time.
Yeah, so it's for both of you, but maybe can you clarify that in the construction of this plan, is this going to include like the amenities that might need to be expanded?
Yeah.
Like parking and trailhead?
Well, we haven't
signage and-
got to that discussion yet, but we know that those amenities have to be part of this bigger scope of the project. Dollars that we have for this grant cycle that we're going through, they might say that, yeah, we need to develop this because of capacity, but I think that's going to be a separate funding thing that we're going to have to seek to get trailhead maps at all of our trailheads, work on infrastructure, working from signage that connects from showing you how to get from town out there. So you have signs in town guiding you, so a whole wayfinding plan from town. All of that is going to be a separate kind of a funding project.
Everyone's safe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, a quick follow-up on what Michelle asked, in that Trail Town book, it talked, there's a whole section about those pieces of it and that infrastructure. So I think it's up to the group. Like if the group is identifying these needs and saying they're important, then yes, I think it absolutely ends up in that final product.
Yeah.
Earlier there was mention of getting riders and trail users off of Dunning Road. I assume it will go down in the valley as you're heading down Dunning Road on the left-hand side, south side of Dunning Road.
We've talked about it, it's still a conversation that we're having with the fort. Nothing is like it's gonna happen or anything. But we've looked at branching off and coming down around the property line and then tying into Roberts Ranch Road, because this is the only place that we can cross the train tracks.
Right.
And then that would put you onto the canal trail, you know?
Okay, I was just kind of curious, because I've actually had riders ask me, is there another way to get through there without going down Dunning Road?
Yeah, not at this point in time.
Any questions? Other questions about what's on the map or comments?
Did we miss anything? Is there a secret trail?
We probably did. There's probably.
There's no signs.
One question. You mentioned the time with keeping the press trail, but I didn't see if there's no mention of like the OTT.
Eugene Crest is OTT, so OTT has come in off of, you know.
Oregon Timber Trail.
Yeah, that's the Oregon Timber Trail, which is a long distance mountain biking trail that goes from the California border to the Washington border, all on trails, and it comes through Oakridge. Utilizes the Middle Fork coming into Oakridge, and then the Heckletooth bunch grass going out all the way, you know, to Waldo and heading over towards Bend. So we're in partnership with OTT on getting the Mount Fuji bunch grass connector tied in. And we're working on other projects with them, so they will be a partner in a lot of this stuff as well.
Hey, Matt, I think it's important to just differentiate that the Oregon Timber Trail is not a separate, its own trail. It's actually a route on existing trails.
Yeah, I'm
it's
referring to it as the OTT organization.
Yeah.
And similar designation with the, you know, Eugene to Crest, you know, it's the overlay on that Aubrey. It's, you know, these trails, some of them have numerous names.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another thing to talk about too, is like the branding on some of these, how to be clear about you are on the right trail, even though it might have two other names. So,
Maybe perhaps instead of referring to it as one trail, like just maybe rebranding it as a trail network.
For sure.
Instead of, because that is a little confusing, I think.
Yeah.
Depends on what school you live in.
Right.
Yeah. I've been arguing about call it Oregon Timber Trail route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something other than the timber trail, but in the marketing world, that doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Sure.
So forget about trying to get that.
There's a website for that. Right. Fair enough.
we have to have a reason to pay consultants tens of thousands of dollars in the future. Okay, so if there's not any other questions on this, we'll shift gears to talk about recreation economy. Okay.
Back over here. Gordy.
Matt, I found a new trail that links Oakridge to Westridge.
Yeah, we're kind of outside the scope of this project, but it is identified in the Westboro Oakridge Trails Plan.
Yeah, it's just private lands, and so it'd be getting some of those landowners on board. Yeah,
They weren't on board years ago.
they weren't on board years ago. Yeah, and I wouldn't say that's necessarily changed, but I think we've made some headway with our fuel reduction projects on Laurel View. And definitely one of those landowners that has a big chunk of land, I think we could build some relationships on, but yeah, so those key pieces. But I think these are discussions, maybe, it might not be this project per se, but these are seeds that we want to capture in this process for maybe future discussions.
So that's why it's important if you guys have great ideas like that, you fill out that survey and capture those ideas in those surveys. Because so they don't slip through the cracks. We want to hang on to those things because those are just gonna keep this momentum. Once we get this ball rolling, we want to keep it rolling, right?
Great. Okay, so I think we'll switch gears. Oh, no, Derek, go ahead. We got time.
This is just a local pro tip. If there's a trail that goes through an area that gets you to somewhere else, become friends with that landowner, be really nice to them, and don't advertise what you're doing. So when this plan gets going, then we can work with that landowner and make it official. There's been a couple times around here where somebody gets the bright idea that we can just make a trail and connect to that, and they do it. And the landowner finds out, and that just screwed up any chance of getting that connected up to our system by pissing off the landowner, by not telling them what we're doing. So just throwing that out there. If you feel like a rebel, be a really nice one and introduce yourself to the landowner that you're rebelling against.
I will say definitely on Laurel View, we know multiple landowners that have cameras up and they do monitor their land. So you're not necessarily going to sneak through. So I think it's definitely worth it to build a relationship and ask.
Yes.
Some new folks came in the room. If you did come in later and you did get lunch, please do. And anyone else, we still have plenty of sandwiches, cookies, drinks and whatnot. And we have, Jude, really 45 minutes to talk about recreation economy if you want to. So I think we'll have Jude switch gears and talk about economy. What's that?
We need to read it at all.
We can,
There
put
will-
folks on. We have our next break scheduled at 2:15. I don't know if we'll even go that far, but if folks want to break now, we can, and then come back and talk about rec economy.
Second off.
Okay.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about rec economy, but yeah, do please get up, move around, grab sugar if you need it. I'm going to.
Those marshmallow cookies, oh my God.
Great. Jude, do you want me to drive or do you want to drive? Okay. And it's just, you can't see behind you? Oh, wait. Yep, so you get another screen. Get the presenter.
Well, I will still refer to these because I was trying to be conscientious about time. And I have a tendency to run a little long and get excited about this stuff. This is very much like my world, and a lot of what we're talking about here is what someone who's more of a specialist in trails planning and recreation training would do. I am an urban planner by education, and I've been an economic development consultant for most of my career, which is about 15 years now. And I've traveled all over the country. I've probably worked in 40 to 50 communities, rural to urban, usually up to about 150,000 residents. So not big city stuff. I've worked a lot in rural America, in agricultural communities, less so in forestry dominated areas. So I'll admit that's an area that I'm still learning about. But what I'm here to talk about today is to give you some context around the linkages between a trails network and just broader economic development, and why it's something that not just me, but the field of real estate development and economic development has really kind of come full circle in a lot of ways over the last several decades to realize that can't just build highways for businesses. We've got to build networks for people and for livability. So I do a lot of studies on that in my sort of day job. I work for a company called the Goodman Corporation, and we are specialists in transportation infrastructure, from planning and strategy all the way through grant funding. So I've seen the life cycle of a lot of different kinds of projects, and my job is usually to look at the economic implications of those investments by case study work or, in real time, looking at a community, how it's changed over time, and try to use the data as much as possible to make the case so that when we invest public dollars, we know it's going to get an ROI. So we'll cover some of that more specific impact stuff, but I am going to talk a little bit more broadly about it in terms of what economic development is, because a lot of people use it interchangeably with a lot of different other terms. Some people, like if you're a business or if you're in the more economic sphere or finance, you're going to think of it as growth. But typically it's not actually the growth itself. It's what you do to support that growth. It's also branches into not just supporting commercial real estate, but the community development side. So housing, all of those things that actually allow the flow of money, exchange of goods and services, adding value to those goods and services, and exchanging them with other parts of the economy. There's no such thing as an isolated, self-sustaining community. Even if you have a lot of really strong community organizations and stuff, you still have to have some dollars and cents to flow through your community. So economic development is really the actions, the policies, the decisions that communities make to invest in the infrastructure that supports the economy. And then it's the economic actors, the private businesses, the wages that they pay, the proprietor income that they turn around and generate more. That's the growth part. So what we're talking about here is that underlying infrastructure piece. And really, I often use the definition of it's what the public sector does to promote, private sector growth. And that's really, how you decide what that growth is going to look like really is up to a community, and it can look a lot of different ways. If anybody had it all figured out, we'd all look the same and we all be really wealthy. So ultimately, it's about your values. It's about, longer term, bigger picture outcomes that you're trying to accomplish. But really, this is also a function of just the longer history of this country. And I really, tend to start with this level of discussion in groups at a strategy level like this, which is, we're coming out of our parents, grandparents' generations where we had an agricultural and natural resources based economy. And now we're in a global economy where most of us are actually involved in services. We're actually selling, our brain power or software, things like that.
As an economy, we definitely still make things, but a lot of those assets, the manufacturing sites and all that, they're in the big cities. And so as the world has globalized, we really look less at like, we have a mill here, even if something like that were to be activated, it's not going to have 1,000 jobs anymore. It's going to be mechanized. And a lot of those, value added production elements of it are going to be somewhere more central, closer to ports and major infrastructure. So we're just in a fundamentally different place to be talking about trails, connections than even this community was when some of these early trail networks were designed. It was just, they were able to be a more or less self-sustaining community. And today I really think that the trails discussion is more to do about talent attraction and thinking about not just attracting big companies, but attracting people. And some of them may commute to the city. 70% of our active workforce in this community commutes into Eugene. Some of them as far away as Portland, several times a month, or even Bend. So we're part of a much larger region. And as a local community, we need to think the same way that cities do. And if you do that, you actually can see a lot of ROI, which is, you see communities like Logan and Ogden, Utah, Moab, places that you guys may know as trail destinations, but they're also attracting tech companies or even smaller manufacturers, folks like Sarah and some of the other boomerangs that, moved away, got some skills in a big city, and they realize like, I can do what I want to do in a smaller place where I have more quality of life. And that's a big asset for us. And so I think of the trails discussion as something that's not just about choosing tourism or a mill, because we're not actually having that discussion anymore. If you're having that level of discussion, you're not paying attention to where we are as a community and where we are in the broader picture of the global economy. This is really about how can we make investments that achieve multiple objectives across pursuing a lot of different opportunities for growth, whether it's tourism or not. So I just wanted to ground that a little bit so that we're aware of just the broader implications. And I really want to resist the idea that we're making a choice of choosing mountain bikers versus people who grew up here. That's just the premise of that question is not what's at stake here. And we can have a lot of win-wins for everybody if we can think that way. And just to ground us a little bit more like the state of our economy locally, again, yes, former mill town, multiple mills out here. And there are still some small towns with active mills, but I don't know if you pay attention, several of them continue to close. And it's not because they don't have the resources. It's because they can't get the people. Quality of workforce, training, retention, all of those things. So even if we were having, again, the mill discussion, this talent attraction piece is vital. Can people grow up and have a full life for their children, for their parents, for themselves? Demographically speaking, even though we've kind of capped and been pretty stable, I think the data I found was, I think the community capped at about 4,000, give or take, residents. That's just Oakridge, not Westford. But we've been around 3,200 for a really long time. But if you look within those demographics, we've really shifted a lot. We've aged. And while we have about the same percentage of like kids and children under 18 as similar communities into the county overall, we have a much smaller chunk of our community that's between like 20 to 50. And in an economic sense, that means like the incomes of those few people, it's give or take a minority. You want that to generally be about 60 to 70%, because that's the income generating folks that have disposable income that's growing, if you have a sort of deficit there, if it's shrinking, it really just makes it harder for local businesses to support people when it's not tourism season. It makes it harder on those individual households to be able to support their parents and their children. So again, we have to pay attention to this because, it has to do with a lot of the broader just moving pieces and indirect spending and not just their jobs and livelihoods. So that's just something that stuck out to me. We don't have a high labor force participation rate because we just don't have a very large labor force. And it shows if you have a drop off between 18 and 25, it means they're leaving. And so we're not retaining some of the kids that grow up here, or they may just come back a little later. I will say, the mountain biking, as I've learned and studied this community and been part of it, it really did kind of allow this community to burst into the scene of Oregon, and a lot of it, I think, too, is you guys were just talking about the marketing of trails. That's really what it was. These were trails that existed. They gave them a facelift and said, hey, look at this hub and spoke network that we have here. And we started some shuttle companies and brought in Mountain Bike Oregon. And hardly any real capital investment needed to be made. And yet we got on a global list, what is it? I'm gonna mess up this. IMDb Gold,
Okay.
but now, I mean, that's almost 10, 15 years ago when a lot of that started. And we haven't really added anything new. Meanwhile, everybody else like us caught on. And so I think, whether or not that was right to do or not, it was a huge opportunity and we still have it. We're still getting a lot of those people. Some of them even moved here, I think, because of that. It put this community on their radar. But we really think we need to think about all the future investments as not just like leveraging our existing assets and our strengths, but how do we use that to grow into broader markets and industries. So this, again, I'm trying to resist this tendency to say, well, we are either going to be a tourism economy or not. And like if you have a strong tourism economy, it means you're probably a really great place to live. So you have a lot more ability to attract other types of people and firms. There's a lot more that we can do with this, but it does require, again, thinking from that 21st century economic development model about a talent-focused attraction strategy. So I called up the recent lumber mill closure, and in that article in particular, and a few of the ones that I've read, these are mills they only need 25 people. 25 people, and they couldn't stay open because they just didn't have the people to do it. So again, there's a lot more that we need to be thinking about here when we think about the natural resource economy. Okay, this was a fun part that OTA invited me to look a little bit closer at all of the other, like the top 10 trail systems, according to Trail Forks.
Trail destinations.
Trail destinations, yeah. And threw in another one in Washington. So I got to compare Oakridge to those other communities, and I used, some existing trails data, as well as just some broader economic resources that I have on hand. And I did a quick look at a lot of the literature that was done. There was that study back in 2014 about the economic impact of mountain biking on the Oakridge community. I mean, that study's been quoted and requoted and brought into a lot of other economic studies. It's a fascinating one. And they had a lot of different models. So instead of reinventing that wheel, I just inflation adjusted it. Like, let's just assume everything was the same, because we really haven't lost any ground there. It's really just a lot of the same people, the same type of communities that they were interviewing and capturing the spending data from those. So I think back then it was like $2.4 to $4.3 million annually. But if you just took it at an inflation basis, that's about $4 to $7 million a year, which maybe sounds like a lot. But I would argue that we're really scratching the surface, especially when you look at some of these other communities. These networks, when I compared them across just the trail utilization data, and a lot of it was just really simple rankings and then trying to identify, the spreads here and really where do we fall and stand against some of these communities. And yeah, I did call out, and it's hard to read here, that we're kind of in the mid-moderate stage as far as certain performance indicators, I'll call them. In terms of like user ratings, people love these trails. And we have a pretty high percentage of blue and black. And as Matt mentioned, we have a lot of those and not so many green trails. So we rank pretty poorly on those. But when you look at it at a diversity standpoint, which is really what I was getting at, was, what's the right mix of trails? And what can we learn from that? Because there are other communities that have a ton of greens, but they're not performing well either. So it really, started to hone in on like this idea of like a 40-40-20-ish split of greens, blues, and then more advanced trails or auxiliary trails and connections and stuff. So I was able to find a sort of index of that. And we, again, rank really poorly, but that some of these other communities also fell down a little bit too. So you get to the sense that these are diverse trail systems, but the things that they point you to in terms of growth opportunities for us are pretty much across the board, because we ranked so consistently low on anything that wasn't, the blue and black ratings. So, and then I did note that we had a higher, not quite at the top, but a higher percentage of female users. And I think there's some folks in this room responsible for bringing a lot of female users to these trails. That's pretty awesome. And those aged in the 40 to 60 range. We had a slightly higher percentage than the other folks in the cohort. But we ranked really low in terms of like youth users. 0.05% of our users are youth, which I guess is probably our whole NICA team. And that's including visitors and locals. So it means people aren't bringing their kids either. green trails and usage, again, right at the bottom, we just don't have a lot of alternatives. And then I was able to pull a ton of data on just jobs, and I was able to zero in on like, not just retail, but what about specialized retail that would capture something like the mercantile? So outfitters and specifically like recreation targeted types of merchandisers, including there's specific education types of companies that are guide services and stuff like that. So able to really kind of zero in on like the specific types of businesses tied to the recreation economy specifically. And I pulled it at like a zip code level because these are kind of sub-regional areas. So I captured each of these trail systems and the, probably within a 20-minute drive of these trail systems. So that's a good slice. And again, it's pretty jarring, not just in terms of like the jobs that we're missing out on and the number of different kinds of companies, but just gross revenue. Again, it's that flow of goods and services and people stopping and spending more money. So again, this isn't about becoming Bellingham, because that's like way out aspirational. I'm talking about peer communities that are really just only maybe 5 years, 10 years ahead of us in terms of adding some of these assets. And you can really start to see now, correlation is not causation, but there is a direct generative benefit when these trail systems exist. The business community responds and people want to spend more money and they can bring their parents and their kids. And you can see how all these new consumer markets start to open up. And that also yields benefits in terms of, different types of recreational activities that they may want to do, whether it's fishing or anything else. This is where you start to expand way beyond mountain biking. And the diversity of the business environment really starts to expand. And again, those are the types of companies that we living here also use. So wouldn't it be great if like we can leverage the tourism economy to just wait till they're all gone and then we have all of our stuff and we get to access and live in this beautiful place, which is, if you go to Telluride, all these other places, that's why it's ideal, is actually to just use it for what it's good for so that you can have a higher quality of life. And yeah, we were really at the bottom of local users. I mean, we don't have as large of a population of some areas, but there's a lot of, I'm looking at peers, they really are. We're not far from being able to perform at this level. So I just wanted to call into, just to your mind that like, one new trail doesn't equal one new business. It's about a broader network. It's about opening up a broader diversity of options, and that this infrastructure can actually facilitate a lot more broader economic benefit. And we can see it in peer communities all over Oregon. Again, this is just sort of a literature review slide of just things I looked into. But again, I'm just hitting the same point here, that outdoor recreation is both in service to a tourism industry itself, but it's also an economic development tool for livability. And, companies, literally, there's studies that have been produced around just the impact on employee retention by having a business park with a trail link to it. People just want to be able to bike to work, even if they're not doing it. Like, people are happier. I mean, it's so great that people who work here, they get to walk around the loop. I see them because I come here with my dogs. This is not just a trend. This is like a recognition that the economic development world has actually finally gotten up to realize that you have to have strong community development to compete in the global economy. So, I've seen it in business parks, eco business parks is what they call them, that are integrated with the recreation landscape, and sustainable design principles and stuff. So there's a whole lot of resources here. And I really tried to think expansively about not just the impacts of mountain biking, the dark sky tourism direction that's going on. I mean, that's come to the top of almost every visitor poll. What do you want to see? What kinds of new things do you want to engage in? We have potential to leverage, our lack of, anything around us to tap into a whole new industry that would otherwise really not be available to us geographically speaking. So again, we have these assets. We just haven't really thought broadly enough about how they integrate. And one of the things, again, that I really focus on is how trails have really become part of a broader set of thoughts and thought leadership around the transportation network and its integration with land use policy. And I mean, I've done study after study of these across multiple big cities and small communities. Trail connections bring a premium. That's the easiest way to say it. And this is not to wave a flag of fear of gentrification, because actually these the benefits are usually pretty concentrated and they're pretty much aligned with when you build it, there's almost always a direct response from the development community. They want to be right next to it. And you can go onto CoStar and all the commercial real estate sites and pull the cut sheets, what they're using to advertise. They're like, look, my building is right next to a trail. You can just basically leave your car parked outside your apartment and you might never have to use it most of the week. I mean, these are like real advertising language that they use, and they're putting that front and center instead of, proximity to a highway or something like that. Yeah, states, regions, they're all actually integrating trails networks into transit planning, sidewalks and roadway networks. So if we think that expansively, and I think go beyond just thinking about using these outward trail networks, out in the community, and we can really integrate it with our city planning and transportation planning. We can literally, I get excited too, because there's a lot of changes happening in our land use policies and allowing for a little bit more density in certain parts of town. It's really hard to build both affordable housing that is accessible to the kinds of amenities that families who don't have a car might be able to access. And I think that we're at a really pivotal time right now, that if we can integrate some connections to our built landscape here, we can really leverage that to see some dirt moving, beyond just companies activating vacant spots. So I'm just going to kind of wrap it up here in a general sense, just to remind you that we're talking about infrastructure here for economic growth that's of the class, and thinking of the 21st century knowledge economy, and what not just like young remote worker millennials like myself want. It's what families want. There's not a single demographic group that if you ask them, wouldn't you like to live in a car alternate, or at least have choice? Would you want that? There is not a single group that's like, no, I seriously just want to be in my car all day. The broader economic benefits are also just tied to quality of life. So we that live here can benefit from this directly. But the key is to remember that it's about diversity and accessibility. So we have to, think about it as a network. It's like doing your family budget or doing investing, diversify. And that you see a lot more generative benefits than if you over specialize. We're pretty strong and pretty specialized right now, and it's a great opportunity that we have to diversify and expand on that. All of these different types of benefits have measurable components that I could do studies on, but ultimately I think it's also ties back to this qualitative piece of, this goes back to the history of this community being integrated with the forest. I think we've had to actively renegotiate our relationship with the forest every generation, and we're at another turning point like that right now. And I think that, this really, I think could help potentially be a bridge in some otherwise contentious challenges that we face. I really hope that we can narratively, because marketing is so much a part of this, really talk about this as like a way of us evolving beyond these diametrically opposed positions, and really just say, this is actually going to benefit our industrial growth. This is going to benefit our commercial growth on the highway and uptown, and it's going to benefit our housing opportunities. So I think that's pretty much it. Anybody have anything they want to rant on?
Yeah, so sending a transportation network and providing direct economic benefits. Another thing that trails networks do is they address climate resiliency. So for communities like ours, funny enough, there's a fire that's been going on. We've talked about trails being interwoven into the network as a way to, one, get emergency access in and out of certain parts of the community easily and quickly, and two, providing another barrier to wildfire as it travels. So then trails networks can also enhance our community by providing safety and resiliency to our communities and protection against wildfires. And the same thing could be said for levee trails. When those trails are bolstered, is having like an additional layer of recreation that serves the purpose to get people back and forth in a transportation network, but also serving the purpose of having a resilient landscape to address flooding that is also another hazard that is occurring for regularity around here. So.
Totally. Yeah. I was just thinking, I think I threw something like that in there, but that not just the trails themselves, but that in order to cultivate these networks, you have to have a sort of conservation and environmental preservation mindset, and that allows us to avoid flood damages and it shores it up as opposed to just clear cutting and stuff like that. So that's a fantastic point. Yeah,
Being from, originally from Ohio, I've seen firsthand what trails can do for communities, like Marietta, Ohio, where no one would ever go to Marietta, Ohio. There's no reason. Then they built a 75-mile trail system through town. They actually worked with private landowners to cut these trails through town across people's properties and stuff. And they built a pretty amazing trail system there. Same with Chauncey, Ohio, in the Wayne National Forest, where they just finished up a 105-mile trail, stacked trail system there. And a lot of the locals were kind of against it at first, like, we need mines, we don't need these trails through the old mines. And they started realizing that by having these trails adjacent to their properties, they started opening little Airbnbs along in their backyards and stuff that actually connect right to the trails.
yeah,
And it's been interesting, because I still have a lot of friends and family back there, and the transformation that's happening. And Chauncey, it was a town about the size of Oakridge, and it had less population, and now they just opened a brewery there. So, I mean, it's interesting to see a ghost town kind of come back to life from it.
yeah, it's so true. I just can't emphasize that, like, yeah, conservative places like Texas, where I live, at the begining, they were like, who's going to want to ride bikes around here? It's so hot. Everyone calls it the armpit of the United States. But yeah, it's still that humid bayou country. But yeah, the Buffalo Bayou Trails Network put Houston on the map as a globally relevant city. And I personally used it to commute to work in. So
the other good example is Bentonville. But
oh yeah,
another monster.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, just one of the things like talk about kind of like drawing people here as well. So, like for Kim and I, those of you don't know, like we just moved here out of a very large city, Denver. And, it's a big decision to jump here. And I remember one of the nights I was sitting around my iPad in bed, like looking at, and this is what I'm just like, as a draw for like families and things. I looked at all the trail systems, I was looking at all the elevation profiles. We like big cross country rides too, and just not all downhills. Like right now, I'm just like, how many brake pads are we gonna go through a season? But like I literally had a freak out moment at night, like seeing just looking at all the elevation profiles. And I'm like, it got me to almost a point where I was like, I don't know if I want to, like, we're gonna have to get a shuttle. I mean, yeah, we enjoy it, but it's like, there's days you just want to go out here, thankfully we are the levee trail right in our backyard. So we can go up Salmon Creek and things like that and walk the dogs. But in terms of bringing people here, I think it's great that we're doing this. It is that lack of, basic climbing trails to get to other trails, or that lack of green trails in your chart you had up there. And like even an observation we made the other day, it's just the age bracket that we are seeing. It is like out on the trails, like we're not seeing that 20 to 30-year-old, like, younger generation here. I'm seeing like most folks seem to be like 40 to 60, kind of folks. And I don't know, like for shuttle drivers, like what you guys say, and so I'm thinking, it's just me just bombing them out. But it's like, but it's in my own personal experience of making a big decision to move here. If we had kids, it probably would have been a different thing. Like how could they recreate? And like we were talking about the other day as well. If we brought family out here, that mountain bike, they'd be scared shitless.
Sister was like, is there any place I can ride with you? And I'm like, I don't know about that.
So, exactly. So that's what I was thinking, the way that we're having these brainstorming sessions, I think it's really good in that if we can move forward with these things, just, speaking from our personal experience on some factors that weighed in on our move and things that, we kind of like, oh, do we really want to, do we not? And so,
Yeah, thank you for that. I was gonna add that, maybe a last thing, it's probably just redundant at this point anyway. I'm very pro this.
The kids though, and I saw it on your data there, Jude. I mean, it's so real. Like we have an element, and this project just happened to pick the elementary school because it's right there towards the middle. We have an elementary school where a good portion of the kids don't even know how to ride bikes. But we're supposed to be a trail town, and so that is something definitely to think about. And I know there's a lot of effort going to changing that, but it is the reality. So.
Yeah, I think, there's like memes and stuff that float around in the planning world, but, whether you're in an urban area or not, we just never really designed our transportation infrastructure, period, to feel like you could let your kid run around anymore, latchkey style. You literally leave a curb and people aren't looking for you. I mean, no one is actually, they get mad enough when there's a cyclist going 20 miles an hour, which It's not the speed limit either, but that's pretty fast. And so, I mean, wouldn't it be great to have, you know, off major roadways or off grade at least, ways that you could just know that your kid's gonna be out for the day, riding around, building a relationship with this landscape, you know, and you won't have to worry about it. I think that's the one benefit that a town of this size can actually pursue, as opposed to one much larger than us, where, you know, just to get access to those kinds of trail networks be so much farther, physically speaking. So yeah, no, thank you all for engaging in the topic. I tend to like have prepared a bunch of wonky talking points and percentages and stuff, but at the heart of the matter, and in a big picture level, if you diversify it and really create a community that's safe for all, people do respond. And us not having these age groups is not because we don't have the assets. It's really just we haven't really found a way to use them, talk about them, own that part of our story as something that we're proud about. And I think that as soon as we start doing that, then people will be really ready to respond. The choice is ours.
What's
Make good
really
choices.
sad is I raised children here and my children did ride to the North Pole other while I was working full time. And they did ride up Santa Creek, go to Cement Falls, and they did ride up Coast Creek. So that used to be here. It's not there.
Some of it literally just grown over and private lands, but.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there are tons of road cycling routes that are really long. You can ride all the way to Blue River on your road bike. You know, you can ride out to 24, you can ride around close to the peak reservoirs. You know, there are other ways to recreate. You know, there's the connect lane from over to Cottage Grove through the back roads. There's a lot of gravel riding. So I know we're here about trails.
Yeah.
But for families, there are some other things to do.
Absolutely. Those gravel trails are trails. The waterways are trails. So yeah, keep on bringing that into the conversation.
Yeah,
For sure.
and trail networks is part of the transportation infrastructure. When you do that at a city level, it ties into greenways and sidewalk networks and, you know, sometimes private access. You can negotiate an easement for it and they look like a diverse, it's not all, you know, fresh granite or a traditional trail. But like we were just talking about, you can call something a trail or a route because it's safely connects you on one type of mode. And that's really the key. So you don't have to as far as the activity.
Speaking of water, what a trail can be like as an avid rafter, I think having like a more developed put in at Hills Creek Bridge there, because there is one, but I'm confused exactly what's going on over there. There's a gate, but it's not really locked, but it kind of is. And there's a sign that says no camping. So, but there's a really easy way to put your boat in there. But that area, if it could be developed a little bit better and have a little,
Bringing the Army forward.
a little
I
clearer.
think that is private land, but I am noticing it is on our map. So, you know, I think
Yeah.
this is something, so Sean, I think that's something to capture for future conversations is as we're thinking about these trails and trail access, that includes our waterway trails.
Yeah,
And if they're in this map area, let's grab that,
it's
you
definitely
know?
in the map. You know, 'cause going over there, it's always kind of like, do I pull my car in there or do I not? You know, it's weird. It's a little weird sometimes. You get a little, but you know.
We have lost waterway access. We have, yeah.
And, you know, I like, you can get it at Greenwater, but like, you miss so many good rapids between that bridge and the park. And to me personally, if we can get even closer to the dam, that'd be even better. Because once you get past like Confluence and KC's, there's just not horribly fun down there. It's there, thank God, but you know, I like to get rowdy. No.
Eugene had a hand up. Let's, a bit ago, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, y'all, I really appreciate everything that you presented, and I think it's mostly accurate. So, I think that there is, the information about the youth riders on our trails probably isn't accurate, because none of our youth riders are carrying any kind of device that's gonna record their trip on the trail. So we, like, with the NICA team, we're getting, 15 kids out twice a week, and none of those trips are recorded in anything. So I would say.
The reason I would say that also happens is that none of the other trail networks either. So
Well, I
you see the
would
data
I would say that's not true.
Yeah.
Because, like the youth riders that I know that live in Bend or Tahoe or Bellingham are on Strava do use devices have more, affluence and connectivity, whereas most of our kids don't. And I don't either. And I mean, I have a device, but I'm not tracking those rides. And so I think I just wanted to say, like, I think it's not as grim as those statistics show. And I think there's actually a big movement of youth on bikes and trails in the community that wasn't really kind of accurately reflected there. But there is a huge challenge to getting the kids from town to the trails safely.
Yeah,
And
so
having trails there for free.
I feel like this is new though, because the elementary school just got bikes this last
Yeah,
year.
like the last,
Yeah,
well, it started with the bike shop thing, right?
yeah.
Before that, really.
No,
tough.
no.
It's like-
So like, there's been an initiative in the last year where the PE teacher actually got bikes because she had so many students that don't know how to ride bikes, and they are
So,
now
like,
teaching how to ride bikes.
5 years ago, is that programming in school, so I think like we're actually at a good moment.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah, well, and the validity of trail user data, I mean, sometimes it's a survey that the Park Service may put out or whatever, Strava, yes. I'd love to use the Strava data, but you always have to qualify, like, this is people who use Strava.
Right.
Which is also a subset of people. But it's still allowed for some level of apples to apples, and I think that the work that you guys are doing and this in general is what's gonna change that, is the community activism piece. And really, again, making people more aware that there's possibility to. So,
Yeah, I just mostly wanted to say, I don't think we're starting from zero.
Yeah.
We have a pretty good start, but we need all the help from all people. We're like, hey, let's figure out how to make these connections happen.
Yeah, and one more connection, because Eugene, I feel like it ties to what you just brought up, and Jude, you kind of hit on, is there's only so far this project can go, but there's things that it can lend itself towards. So we'll talk about plans after the break, but Oakridge did go through this transportation infrastructure planning process and is looking at updates and then upgrades based on that. And that is, First Street actually getting bike lanes and curb cuts and the highway, and how that, how you can travel on the highway other than in cars for transportation. Those are pieces of it. So there are pieces of this I think can lend itself to some of those other initiatives.
Yeah.
So
I think the key to just bringing this kind of thinking to this process is just the invitation, because a lot of y'all go to a lot of different planning meetings too. Is to just be thinking big picture about not just trails, but the TSP, land use decisions, the kind of community we're trying to become. And this is an opportunity to be doing that.
So Dan, I've seen your hand up twice. Can I give you 30 seconds to wrap us up and take us to break?
Sean almost hit it, like,
Okay.
we're on the same brain, because I'm like former whitewater junkie, and that's why I go like see up like Salmon Creek there. I'm like, man, that was just a good put in and a lot less long. If I could just drag my boat right back out to my, house. And so just when you mentioned like water trails, just thinking, yeah, but there's a lot of jumping that river. So
There is.